Let's begin today with kia tutu turo tātou, kia manaki tātou, kia whai hiranga tātou, kia tūhono tātou, hano haramai, te toki hauie huie tākie. Just getting together, united in our purpose. Those of you who've been in these sessions before know I'm trying to challenge myself to do different karakias and okay. Juliet, I have tried to send you a link on there, so let me just double check what's going on. Okay. All right. We are just trying to track down my guest. And we'll see how that tracks. All right. In the meantime, whilst we're doing that, I'll just, as ever, show you through the resource and just kind of talk more broadly about the consultation process. Again, this group 3 of phase 5 curriculum drafts consultation closes on the 3rd of August, which is Monday, I believe. So not long to go. Unfortunately, as we discussed yesterday with the dance piece, the consultation period went through the non-contact time, so that obviously limited, how much time everyone had to take a look at this. But I am hopeful that people have been gathering together. I have heard subject associations again gathering together to look at this curriculum. And as I said, really important that we do try to provide as much material as possible to the process. I do also suggest people want to hang on to their survey comments because things can honestly disappear sometimes with the internet, as I'm discovering my very self right at the moment. Okay, so this is... I couldn't be having more computer issues, could I? Yesterday it was doing a little bit as well. Okay, I will share with you the site and hopefully Juliet will be able to get in with us today. And let me pop that link into the chat as well for those of you who want to rather follow along. And this computer is also behaving badly for you. All right. So I'll do my musical number instead. Okay, so the consultation guide that I've created yet again will provide you with links to various bits and pieces and take you to all of the things that you should need. No, this is the wrong one. This is the right one. So if you click here, it'll take you to the Learning Languages page on Taharangi. And again, you'll need to scroll down to find the particular language that you are interested to consult on or the languages that you want to consult on. If you want to go straight to that consultation page, the link is there. And if you want to go straight to the survey, the link is there. As we discussed the other day, you will get different questions depending on how you identify in the survey as a parent, a whānau member, a teacher, a principal, an academic, or one of the other categories. I did ask them about how you ensured you got to answer as many questions as possible. Was not a very clear response, but I would just urge you to, you can always have another go at it if you don't feel like you've gotten to answer what you want to. There is also space available to load up your own documents. So if you gather together and you've written some feedback and you want to submit something, but the questions don't really work for you, you can upload your own content as well. If you want to hear as well, what I've got there is a download of all the survey questions, so you can see them beforehand if you wanted to do it kind of offline and then go up just to fill pieces in. Down here, what I've got is links to the 1 to 4 learning languages content on Taharangi, links again to the curriculum guides that I made for phases 1 to 4, so material there on languages, and then a little article about learning languages as well that might be of interest to you. Okay, so how are we going with my guest? Not getting there. We'll try it one more time and see what's going on. I'm hopeful she's been able to get in. If there's anybody else in the room that would like to jump in, that's already got access and is in with us and would like to come in and speak to some of these slides, as I have very much confessed, learning languages is not my it's not my area of expertise whatsoever, neither as an academic, an educator, or as a learner, I'm sorry to say. So if there is somebody who wants to speak, that would be great. As we do seem to be having a bit of a technical difficulty with our assigned guest right now. But we will move on, and we will go to looking at the consultation, the feedback guide. As ever, this was created with the contributions from other experts. I just want to make sure I continue to say that. Yes, I am happy for these slides to be shared. Absolutely. Share them with whoever you would like. Right, let's go. So on the consultation site, if you click on the Phase 5 Learning Languages feedback, just having an absolute nightmare. Continue. That should take us. Dun, dun, dun. Yes, that will take you to the feedback document, which is just taking a moment to load. That is interesting. Thank you, Rachel. I will fix that shortly. So I'll get that fixed. I won't do it right now, but I will do it. I must have definitely had that link, but obviously something's gone awry. It's been one of those days, I feel. Okay, so feedback on the learning languages. So the summary kind of comments are, there's a real concern about that communication seems to have taken a backseat in these drafts, and it's much more a focus on this kind of knowledge framing, and that's a real change. There's a concern about the progression. It is coherent, but it's whether or not that has available time during the current instructional time period. There's concerns around the level of responsiveness. This is something we've talked about in the other areas as well, around that high level of prescription and what that's going to do in terms of preventing practitioners from working within their own contexts and being responsive to their learners. And then some concern about the missed opportunity to recognise multilingualism, identities, home languages, and those intercultural growth. So the tension here between the sort of knowledge-rich model and then the communicative, intercultural nature of contemporary language. So, and this is a comment that I heard from other people who do know this content, is, sort of a very kind of, that this curriculum reflects sort of an old way of thinking about language, and much more kind of lists and structures, and not so much as languages and evolving, contemporary form. So in terms of the draft itself, if you haven't looked at it, these are some of the key features. They have two interconnected strand, linguistic knowledge and cultural, social, linguistic knowledge, and language learning. Then the languages offered are listed below. So going to the national languages category, the European languages category, and then the Pacific languages category as well. I'm just going to keep checking in case we manage to get a hold of Juliet. She's messaging and emailing me, and nothing is happening. All right. All right. Hang on 1 second. All right. This is what happens. All right. So, pathway. So as ever, the curriculum documents have got the sort of pathway diagrams on the front of them that sort of give you a guide about where you can go with the languages. And, generally people are thinking, well, it's not quite helpful for students to think about in terms of choosing the subjects, but there is a concern that it's sort of narrowing the potential of learning languages and the things that learning languages does for you and the things that it can impact on and take you towards in terms of a career. So a concern that the career focus is too narrow, that it misses some of those broader outcomes that we get from learning languages. We all know about neuroplasticity and cognitive development and thinking about our global citizenship. And that there's a concern that perhaps the pathway is a little bit unrealistic given the time available and currently allocated. So again, the general gist is it's quite a nice little diagram, but is it perhaps narrowing things and limiting a little bit its vision of language learning? In terms of the strands and the knowledge statements, people generally thought that the structure was quite coherent and the capabilities and sequences were quite developed. but there was some concern about that, again, where the position of communication. And so when it says the framing of prominence, it means that not that. So there was a lack of communication as being, I would think, as a layperson, one of the central purposes of learning a language. And this emphasis instead on kind of knowledge and content as opposed to actual practical application and that communicative practice. And then again, and that again kind of feeds into some of the inconsistency. So people thinking about what was in the draft for phases 1 to 4, being quite focused on grammar. And then there is a little bit more communication over in phase 5, but how will that have evolved and developed if there's that disconnect across those two things? I can't speak to this question here about the language learning knowledge strand within the curriculum framework, not being an expert in that, but that was another thing that was raised as a concern. The subject description alignment. Most people felt that the description of the subject, and this was in a few different languages, so just to be clear that this feedback is across the learning languages suite of subjects, that it had quite a good alignment, but there was some issues around clarity and framing. So again, some of those key concepts didn't have clear definition, and weren't used consistently across the documents. And if obviously all of the learning languages are framed with the same strands and the same organizing structure, if that's the kind of thinking behind them, that they're all following a similar kind of way of thinking about learning a language, then you would expect that terminology to be consistent. The place of communication, again, that one coming up for people. There was a feeling that some of the things that were missing were that limited reference to communicative language teaching, thinking about contemporary acquisition, new research, sort of, as I said before, sort of modern ways of thinking about learning languages, and some insufficient recognition of student identity in home languages. I know from my only brief understandings about learning languages, and what I thought was really interesting was around. Oh, sorry, guys, you seem to be looking at two different things. The slide's not moving. That would explain why I'm talking and the slide's not moving. My apologies again. Was very much the complexity of language learners in terms of the variety of people who've got heritage languages, people who speak a different language in the home, and people coming to language learning from a variety of different backgrounds and levels of understanding, which does make it quite an interesting puzzle piece in terms of curriculum generation. Question, there was a significant concern about the appropriateness for the year level. They thought the content was appropriate for senior secondary, but again, it's around this realism, this sort of realistic expectations within the current time available and the current system. So feasibility of workload, is it going to be achievable within the current time allocation? I would also add to that one, I think, probably a concern around staffing and around how schools structure and organise for their language learning within different spaces and places. A concern about students not being prepared to enter phase 5 because of some of the limited opportunities that are available down into the earlier phases. So as you know, right now, phases 1 to 4 remains in draft. But those of you that have looked at those earlier drafts, as I said, people are concerned that there's not enough preparation going forward. It seemed that the expectations would align with qualification pathways. But, again, it's about this achievability for people to do, and thinking that this prescribed level of learning is quite demanding. So again, there's a concern, something that's been mentioned across many curriculum areas, about the volume of content that is expected to be followed. Sequencing progression, people felt like it was a fairly logical sequence and a relatively clear progression, but again, can it be achieved? This is again talking about time. It's talking about potential number of hours and a concern that support is not being provided in the school to make this a curriculum that can be really enacted. So respondents talked about perhaps a stronger and more coherent progression model that really reflects how that develops across year 13 and reflects the teaching environments that we're in and the resourcing that are available to schools. Okay, additions. There are some areas that were identified as missing or underdeveloped. Oh dear. And they would need a stronger emphasis in the draft. So communication, again, this primary goal, and a recognition of kind of fluency development and the ability for learners to experiment and explore, and the way in which we all had a go at trying to communicate in a language that's not familiar to us, and it's through those tangible and practical experiences that we discover things. That concern around learner identities, heritage languages, multilingual identities, and different experiences and exposure to languages, whether that's through, as I said, family members or travel or people coming from different parts of the world. The central position of learner identity and how that connects and makes a valuable contribution to their interest and basis, I guess, for thinking about languages. Te Ao Māori, there was a call for a greater addition of Te Reo Māori and tikanga, acknowledgement of treaty, and some connections around Te Reo Māori and other languages. There's a hope that they would welcome some further explanation about how the capabilities part of the curriculum document works in the learning languages and how those capabilities are meant to be woven through into the teaching sequences. So some more support materials, some more exemplars would be of use. Inclusivity and accessibility. This is a significant concern as to whether or not it's really inclusive and accessible to students. So this kind of large number of, this significant amount of content, reducing the teacher's flexibility and their ability to design responsively to their cohort and their location. Then the idea again of this kind of large quantity of content knowledge and sort of listing, getting in the road of perhaps of real authentic communication and different ways of learning and the ways that learners can engage with the language. The respondents wanted some more inclusion of Māori perspectives throughout this curriculum. So there's a feeling that it was sort of, it was in there in places, but very much at a surface level. A significant concern that was raised too was the positioning of Te Ao Māori as a language within the broader framework of the curriculum. And a recognition, I guess, again, of those diverse learners. We're not all coming to language learning from the same place. And so how is that managed through the curriculum material that's provided? Okay, I am moving swiftly to my summary, and I do apologize, it's just been me, but we have been unable to get my guest in, and I will get in contact with her shortly, and we'll figure out a way to add to this discussion later. So the curriculum in summary, there is a clear structure. People really seem to appreciate that. There was some coherent sequencing. There's some strong thinking about the disciplines and some clarity around the expectations of the learners, which people appreciated. However, there are some systemic issues that people would like them to address before this curriculum comes in to be finalised. So, this concern around communication and that's not clearly centred any longer as the main driving purpose for learning a language. The overemphasis on sort of knowing a bunch of stuff, the limited recognition of multilingual identity, and I think that comes down again into learner identity more broadly. The lack of integration of Te Reo Māori and Te Tiriti perspectives, the concern about time and workload and resourcing, and that heavy level of prescription reducing flexibility. So the respondents wanted a curriculum that's coherent and informed by knowledge, but they want a model that does place communication and intercultural competence at the centre of language learning and really thinks about the learning conditions that our young people are going to be encountering. Okay. Linda, it would have been great to go to you. Sorry. I can see you've got lots of comments in the section, which is fantastic, and I apologise. I've all been a bit of a panic. Okay, I've got a question though. Asian languages put into national languages. Let me go and look at my list for that. Linda, you are welcome to call Juliet if you think you can get a hold of her. We are still have got a few minutes. So let me just go back to the one I'm sharing. You know, who go back and forth. So learning national languages. Te reo Māori, New Zealand Sign Language, English is a national language, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. So those are the lists of languages there. For Rachel's question, and the question of why, I would love to, if anyone has any ideas as to why that might be the languages that have been selected. I don't know. Reader with the ELA so prescripts of 75 pages. Yes, these are quite hefty documents, certainly, and that's part of the issue and the challenge. As you may know, with thinking about a consultation, is taking the time to really read this. We were discussing this yesterday in the dance session, and I think it does require really taking some time to read through this material and to look at the kind of, because it is so prescriptive, you do have to really look at that level at that detail and take the time to read it thoroughly to really appreciate and understand how this may work and be, or not in your classrooms and in your locations. I think there's a mistake. Asian languages should be in their own category. Yeah, does seem a bit strange, doesn't it, Rachel? Whether or not that's a mistake, I pulled that from the Taharangi, or it's me in my mad panic, I'm not sure. So if it is me, I apologize entirely. Great. Okay, it's me. Thank you, Danielle. It's me. I will change that. I have a few fix-ups to do. It's all been a bit, yes, I apologize, guys, but thank you very much for your patience. All right, well, unfortunately, it does not appear that we are going to have an Akira Expo Juliet. What I might do, however, for all of you, and as I said, I'll pop this up, all of this will go up back onto, right, Rachel, the feedback came from, as ever, got a collection of language teachers and experts to submit to me some material through a survey that I then collated and created these resources. So crucially, it's not from me. It's from people who know something about learning languages. Yeah, I'll ask Juliet to, I'll have a chat with her and see if we can add a little bit more material to this for you in the next day or so, try and get it really quickly so that it kind of enhances on this. Yes, I think it is, Adele. We've just identified that that I got carried away with all the New Zealand languages I wanted to have. All right. Well, thank you very much for attending. I apologize again for it being a bit chaotic this afternoon. We had technology things going, and unfortunately, as I said, we didn't have Juliet's expertise with us. But I thank those people who did help inform the creation of this resource. I will go back and tweak those couple of areas that have been identified, and all of the material will be available on Substack in the next. Yep. The link to that. So there's two links. The one I sent you, I think earlier, was the link to the base consultation page, which has got the links to other things, and this is the link to this PowerPoint here, which, as I said, I will go and make those little tweaks to right now. I appreciate that, Adele, but I feel a bit fraudulent this afternoon. Okay, let's close out with our karakia, everybody. And, as I said, commend us all for being here on a Wednesday afternoon in week 2 of the term, even the haphazard job that I might have done. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming. And as I said, if all I'm doing is getting you to think about putting in for this consultation, then I'm a happy camper, because that is what I want people to do. I want people to take the time to really feed into this material. As I said, hang on to a copy of it just in case the survey monkey disappears with your material. Talk to your colleagues and have a good nosy around it. Okay. He whakawhete ana mō tēnei rā, he whakamunga mahara ki ngā taonga tuku iho. na manga na awa na moana, na rako na manu. He titiri mo tatou katoa, kia mahi tahi ai, mo te ao ho tino pai. Mountains, rivers, seas, trees and birds are with us as you are this afternoon, working together for a better world. Ka kite, everybody.